Welcome, friends, to our keynote session. And we have been very fortunate to have a formidable lineup of speakers in our opening keynote session. The 5 speakers listed here together will set the tone and define some of the important discussions to follow. And we are very honored to have with us His Excellency Ajay Bisaria, High Commissioner of India in Canada. His Excellency Nadir Patel, High Commissioner of Canada in India. Honorable Michael Tybolo, Associate Minister of Mental Health and Addiction, Government of Ontario. Mr. Rajesh Bhushan, Secretary, Ministry of Health and Family Welfare, Government of India, through his recorded remarks. And Mr. Deepak Baglas, MD and CEO of Invest India, India. A very warm welcome to you all. Let me begin by inviting His Excellency Ajay Bisaria ji. Even though he arrived in Canada just over a year ago, the timing of his posting turned out to be very critical. As the pandemic raged, Mr. Bisaria has been in the eye of storm that was blowing in several directions. His calm demeanor and scholarly and patient approach to diplomacy have earned him the appreciation of all involved in Canada-India bilateral. Besides, he has also been a great friend of CIF. So, Your Excellency, over to you, and thank you so very much for joining this morning. Can we have Ajay Bisaria ji? To our technical team, I think we are getting a message from Ajay ji that they are not able to see the video. Sorry, friends. In the meantime, our technical team sort out that issue. May I request now our next speaker, His Excellency Nadir Patel, please join us for your remarks. A quick glance at Mr. Patel's bio will tell us that he is a rare gem even among Canada's highly rated public officials. A career that spans stints at Canada Revenue Agency, Privy Council, Consul General in Shanghai, Chief Financial Officer at Ministry of Foreign Trade. I can go on and on, but for us, what he is engaged in currently in New Delhi as Canada's High Commissioner is what is the most important. He has held the post like a man truly committed to seeing the best possible relations between Canada and India. And for that, we thank you sincerely. Over to you, His Excellency Nadir Patel.
Well, thank you very much. Good morning, good evening, and thank you, Satish and Lucky and the team at the Canada-India Foundation for yet another healthcare summit, the third, and a huge congratulations to the foundation, not only for this, but what has been an incredible past year of programming, much of it related to healthcare and the pandemic, among other things as well. It's a privilege to be here. I will acknowledge my counterpart, His Excellency Ajay Bisaria, and there he is. Let me just, now that he's on, did you want to go first, High Commissioner? Because we tend to take each other's messaging. So I'm going to defer and go back to the original order, and I'd be very happy for you to start off if you wish, Ajay.
Nadir, I would request you to please carry on. Let me learn from what you're saying.
Anyways, really great to be here with my counterpart. Whenever we have these opportunities to tag team, it's fantastic. And I do want to acknowledge Minister Tybolo from the province as well. So let me just help set the scene a little bit. My comments are meant to be very informal, and I wanted to sort of share a few personal reflections after having been here for almost 7 years. And I said earlier that the Canada-India Foundation, this is the third healthcare summit. I have to say that the foundation has been a leader in recognizing not only the opportunities, but the importance of collaboration in the healthcare sector between Canada and India. And I think this has been brought to the forefront through what not only Canada and India are experiencing now with the pandemic, but virtually every country around the world. And so not only does that underscore the need and the opportunity to collaborate, but it also shows that this type of further enhancing of the ecosystem is long overdue. And I wanted to share just a couple of short remarks to set the stage. We've long believed that India has played a very significant role on the global scene as it relates to healthcare, particularly in the pharmaceuticals area, and Canada has benefited greatly from that leadership. Canada itself has had a significant leadership position as it relates to a number of facets to the healthcare ecosystem. And I'll touch on just a few of those in a moment. If you really think a little bit about those synergies and what we've had to offer each other, I don't think there will be a better partner to collaborate in the healthcare sector than Canada for India and vice versa. And there's four areas that I'm just going to very briefly touch on, the four I's I refer to as it relates to this level of collaboration in terms of opportunity and, in my view, a need to work together. And the theme or the sessions today and tomorrow will really bring those four areas out in various ways. The first one is innovation. And there's a lot happening already in Canada on the innovation side and in India as it relates to healthcare. Innovation at large, but specifically on healthcare. And a few areas of examples: digital healthcare. The digital healthcare ecosystem includes incorporating deep learning, deep tech, machine learning, artificial intelligence in a whole range of applications. And we're seeing collaboration between Canada and India, Canadian and Indian companies in this space already, a number of examples of that. And some of that are happening through universities, both in Canada and in India as well. And I see this as an area that's still very much at its infancy, but has a lot of opportunity to amplify further. Also under innovation, medical devices. Canada has the 8th largest medical devices market in the world, a number of specific areas relating to the healthcare ecosystem. And I think when you think a little bit about India's unmet demand for medical devices, how combined with its own innovation ecosystem, there are opportunities to further leverage and enhance synergies in that space as well. The third area under innovation is R&D. We're seeing a lot of expansive investments in R&D in areas, specialized areas such as personalized medicine, genomics, cardiology, oncology, among others. And of course, vaccines, which I know will come up over the course of the couple of days in discussion as well. A growing trend in the global pharma industry, of course, over the last decade has been to externalize R&D programs and manufacturing. And I can see great strategic potential for Canada and India, offering significant benefits to both countries and beyond as well. So there's just a few areas, again, very brief under innovation. The second I is infrastructure. I think, we've seen that not only through the pandemic, but well before then as well. There was a movement afoot to build new hospitals in India, to really leverage expertise, not only in India, but around the world and in particular Canada. And we have over 30 years of experience in health infrastructure, delivering PPP projects, in particular in the healthcare sector. And Canada has and continues and will offer advanced technology and information and communication and point of care capabilities particularly as it relates to quality of care over the last mile, which is something that we're seeing can be amplified here in India over the last little while. We've seen examples of that as well. And of course, tied to the PPP and infrastructure is the education sphere, where there's a lot happening in terms of advanced training programs to support the delivery of healthcare as the infrastructure develops as well. The third area, briefly, is investment. One of Canada's greatest advantages in the context of this relationship is the billions that are flowing into India in terms of investment from large-scale institutional investors, whether it's pension funds or other institutional investors. And when you sort of align the need for investment through infrastructure and PPP and opportunities for long-term growth, which is what we're talking about here, leveraging investment for targeted healthcare needs, I think, can be very, very well positioned and something that could be explored even further. And finally, international collaboration. And we're seeing it, as I said, even if you take the start of the pandemic last year, collaborating on pharmaceutical ingredients, collaborating on vaccines, and more recently with some of the challenges, collaborating through various equipment, supplies, as not only meeting a near-term need, but focused on long-term sustainable growth in the healthcare relationship. And I think one thing is very clear is that no country can go it alone as it relates to COVID. We must collaborate together, and COVID won't be defeated by one country alone unless it's defeated everywhere. And if you just take that, expand that to what we could do for the broader healthcare ecosystem, I think despite how challenging, how tragic the last year has been, whether it's in India or Canada or elsewhere, we can learn from some of these experiences to really enhance how we tackle some of the greatest healthcare challenges going forward. And on that note, I think this event over the next 2 days and past healthcare summits are an opportune moment for us to really explore tangible ways to move things forward in a collaborative manner. And international collaboration includes multilateral, includes working with other countries. But as I said earlier, I believe there is no better partner for India and no better partner for Canada than India, Canada working together to really leverage that international collaboration as it relates to optimizing growth in the healthcare ecosystem. So let me leave it at that and say congratulations to Canada India Foundation again, and wish all of you a very successful 2-day conference. I look forward to following the results of some of the discussion. And I will say, as many of you know, my time in India is coming to an end very soon. This will be my last event, but I couldn't think of a better event than healthcare focused to be able to offer up some remarks as I sort of make a graceful exit in the coming weeks. So with that being said, back over to you, and congratulations and thank you for having me here to say a few words to help kick things off. I think you're on mute, Satish.
Yeah, thank you so very much, His Excellency. Thank you for reminding, for joining this morning and sharing your very insightful thoughts. We wishing you a great success ahead in all your endeavor. You've been a great leader, championing on Canada-India relation. Sincerely appreciate and thank for your service. And friends, now please help me in welcoming His Excellency Ajay Visaria ji. Sorry for the technical glitch, Ajay ji, over to you. Ajay ji, you are on mute.
Thank you very much. Can you hear me now?
Yes, absolutely.
Dr. Lakshmanan, Chair of the Canada-India Healthcare Summit. Thakkarji, Chair of the Canada-India Foundation. Dr. Kevin Smith. His Excellency Nadir Patel, my friend, on his bowing out speech. It's so wonderful to see you, and thank you so much for all that you've done, the stellar role that you've played in the last 7 years in India and for this partnership. So it's wonderful to be here with you on this very important conversation before you call it a day. Also want to greet my colleague, Health Secretary from India, Rajesh Bhushan, who will join us later with a recorded message, and my friend and colleague, Mr. Deepak Baglas, who is going to join us. So namaskar and good morning to friends in Canada. Good evening to friends in India. It's so wonderful to be part of this very important summit this morning in Canada. So let me begin by thanking the Canada-India Foundation and the Toronto Rehabilitation Institute and FICCI for inviting me to this plenary session. And it's a special word of commendation for both to CIF, to TRI and FICCI for the timing of this summit. You couldn't have chosen a better timing because this is really the conversation that we need to have on the India-Canada corridor and globally about healthcare and its long-term implications. What I thought I would do is speak of the current crisis, certainly of the second wave, before I go on to talk about beyond the second wave on this pandemic and beyond the pandemic on collaboration in the India-Canada health sector. What we are going through is certainly a very serious second wave, and we haven't yet come out of the woods in India. This was a wave, as you know, which overwhelmed India's healthcare system in multiple ways. It was a tsunami that came upon us very suddenly. We were at a number of fresh cases of about 50,000 on March the 30th. And suddenly in a month, we had 400,000 daily cases. And compare this to a peak which we had last year of just about 97,000 cases in September. For the entire duration of the first wave of the pandemic, India did well. We felt that we had managed the pandemic and dealt with it in a competent way. But none of the predictive models could prepare us for the kind of second wave that we have seen. 26 days non-stop till 3 days ago of numbers beyond 300,000. That was enough to overwhelm any medical system in the world. So what India did was mobilized on a war footing to deal with this crisis in multiple ways, in the people, the government, and most of all, the medical fraternity in India geared up in heroic ways to deal with this crisis and to get over it. We still are cautiously optimistic that we are seeing the plateauing, because yesterday the numbers were 276,000 in India compared to a peak of 400,000. We are still not out of the woods, but we are hopeful that this is a plateau. In Delhi, for instance, we came down from a peak of 26,000 to about just over 3,000 fresh cases yesterday, and a positivity rate that has dropped to about just over 5%. And in Mumbai as well, we have empty hospital beds available. So the story is different in different parts, but what we are concerned about is the pandemic or second wave affecting the rural hinterland, the tier 2 or tier 3 cities. So what drove this pandemic? There are multiple theories, certainly fueled by the 3 variants, which were more infectious, more deadly, more virulent than anything we had seen in the first wave. There was also an issue of increased susceptibility of populations, and also, of course, public behavior, which had changed as the pandemic seemed to be coming to an end in February. So just to give you a sense of what India has been doing to deal with this crisis, the first measure, of course, has been vaccines. India has vaccinated now or administered more than 187 million vaccines already. But the plan now is to go ahead in an accelerated way. So for the period January to August 2021, we hope to be procuring about 510 million vaccines for all Indians. The attempt is then to have, by the end of the year, an availability of more than 2 billion doses, 2.16 billion doses by the end of the year. So the expectation and the hope is that by the end of the year, India would have vaccinated everyone, all Indian nationals over the age of 18. The second important piece that we are working on, which has the second wave demonstrated is very important, is the monitoring of genomic variations of the coronavirus. So what we did in India was put together a genomics consortium of 10 national labs that has been continuously monitoring the genomic changes and the variants, and 17 new labs are being added to this consortium to screen more and more samples, because this was a wave driven by the variants and we need to detect them early in order to deal with them. The third element, of course, was enhancing the supply of medicines and medical equipment to deal with the surge in cases. So just for an example, the remdesivir, which was the drug of choice during the treatment of this second wave, the number of cases, the number of vials being used went up from 4 million to about 4 million per month in production to about 12 million per month. So the manufacturing capacity was added in a big way. And you would have seen the report of the new drug which has been developed by the DRDO, the Defense Research and Development Organization. The first batch of it is being available, 2-deoxy-D-glucose, which was developed indigenously, and hopefully that will be scaled up. The testing also goes on in a very, very strong way. The 320 million tests have been done already, and we are testing at the rate of 1.5 to 2 million a day. So that is an important part of component of the treatment. During the surge, the most important challenge was to meet the requirement of oxygenated beds. And that is where India had to gear up in a massive way. India had to repurpose the use of medical oxygen. The oxygen challenge was particularly severe because at the peak of the last crisis, the oxygen demand was 3,000 metric tons a day. It was hovering around 700 to 1,000 metric tons every day. But in the peak of the second wave, the demand climbed up to over 8 or 9 times, to 8,000 to 9,000 metric tons. And India geared up in multiple ways. And within a month, the production went up to about 9,000 metric tons. Oxygen trains and oxygen expresses were used to transfer oxygen. Oxygen was repurposed from industrial to medical oxygen, and then in cryogenic containers transported to hospitals. So we have a situation today of oxygen availability. So these were the multiple ways in which India responded to this crisis, and we hope that we will see a plateauing, and certainly hope that the worst is behind us. When you see the efforts that were made in India, they were greatly supplemented by the international goodwill and support that we got. And here I want to thank Canada for the wonderful support and solidarity we got from Canada. Over 40 countries reached out to India with medical supplies and oxygen products, which we needed immediately. And Canada was foremost among them. 2 planes from the federal government came in, about 7 or 8 planes have already come in from provincial governments, and a large number of community-based organizations have been reaching out to us, wanting to help in multiple ways, and this process goes on. So thank you very much for this collaboration. And I think this is a marker of the kind of empathy we have for each other, and the desire to go ahead and collaborate even more. Coming to now beyond the pandemic, my colleague Nadir has already spoken about in the infrastructure and the investment and the possibilities. But let me just touch upon, before we go there, on some of the lessons we are learning from the second pandemic. What are the lessons for the world? What are the lessons for Canada? My take would be that there would be 4 important lessons. First, we need to keep vaccinating and reducing and using lockdowns to cut human-to-human transmission as we keep monitoring the second, the third waves which are going around. The second important piece is to continue monitoring the variants that are coming of this deadly disease, which can strike at any time, anywhere. The third is that we need to strengthen public health systems. And these need to be ready to face waves. So we need to have rapidly scalable oxygen beds available, and we need to be have these resources which are perhaps globally fungible. They could be rushed from one place to the other to deal with surges in the pandemic. And fourthly, I think most important, that this is a global pandemic. The solutions need to be global. The conversations need to be global. And we need to be collaborating with each other on research, drugs, vaccines, monitoring on long-term issues. So I think that is the backdrop in which we need to take forward the conversation on the long-term potential for collaboration. India and Canada have the architecture in place. We have the will in place to have strong collaboration in these sectors. We have an architecture for science and technology, for research-based collaboration. We also have funding and investments, which have been the headline story over the last few years, of investments going up from $5 billion to $60 billion from Canada into India. So I think, as Nadir mentioned, the Indian healthcare sector is offering huge opportunities, and that is the subject of our summit. But if you just look at the annual growth of the healthcare industry in India, it has been about 22% since 2016, and it's expected to reach a very high number of about $370 billion by the year 2022. And India's healthcare industry has multiple sectors. These are hospitals, medical devices and equipment, health insurance, clinical trials, telemedicine, medical tourism. These are all the market segments which are expected to diversify as an aging global population with a growing middle class would increasingly favor preventive healthcare as well. I think one important outcome from this crisis should be building back better. And building back better is most important, particularly in public health systems, in healthcare, because that's where we've seen ourselves most wanting as we see surges in the pandemic. India will certainly bounce back from this pandemic sooner rather than later. India will continue to be the pharmacy of the world. India will continue to be the vaccine maker of the world, because 60% of the global capacity is in India. So India aims to be a global healthcare hub. And beyond this pandemic and beyond this wave, this is the role we will continue to play. There are deep structural reforms that India continues to undertake in this sector, which many of our experts, I'm sure, will talk about. And let me just conclude by mentioning 2 or 3 areas which are of great promise. In the hospital segment, we have an expansion of private players to tier 2 and tier 3 city locations beyond metropolitan cities. And this offers a hugely attractive investment opportunity. According to Invest India's investment grid, there are nearly 600 investment opportunities worth about $32 billion in the country's hospital and medical infrastructure. We have huge opportunities in pharmaceutical, of course, and in technologies which Nadir mentioned, which were all related to artificial intelligence and wearables and so on. But this is all for the experts to discuss, and I really do look forward to the conversation that our specialists will have over the next couple of days. We look forward to ideas being thrown up, and we look forward to getting those ideas into action very soon. So thank you very much for having me, and wish you an excellent ideation at this summit.
Thank you so very much, His Excellency Ajay Ji, for your remarks and providing us an update on the ground reality in India. India and people of India remains always in our thoughts, and we are wishing a very, very speedy recovery from this second wave. And thank you for your leadership and your support to Canada India Foundation. Friends, after an illustrious career spent as a lawyer, Mr. Michael Tybolo turned to politics in 2017 as he realized that he can do maximum good for his passion project, better outcome and care for the mentally ill. Naturally, as Associate Minister of Mental Health and Addiction in the Ford government, he is in right place at the right time. The pandemic has had a negative impact on mental health as well that will require monitoring for years to come. And we are very fortunate to have someone like Minister Tybolo with a proven dedication to the subject guiding this initiative. Thank you, Minister, for joining, and thank you for your leadership. Over to you. We are looking forward to your remarks.
Thank you. Namaskar. Thank you so much for permitting me to come this morning to say a few words. Good morning, Your Excellencies, Mr. Chairman, and good evening as well, I guess, for the people that are joining us from India. It is truly an honor to be here on behalf of the Government of Ontario, led by our Premier, Doug Ford, and as the province's very first Associate Minister of Mental Health and Addictions, I want to extend a heartfelt thank you to the Canada-India Foundation, UHN, Toronto Rehab Institute, the Consulate General of India, and the FICCI for extending the invitation to speak to all of you today. I also want to let all the people of Indian heritage joining us today to know that our thoughts and prayers are with India as the country fights their battle against COVID-19. I know many Ontarians of Indian heritage have families and friends that have been impacted by this terrible virus. India will always be a true friend to Ontario, and we will always be there for you. In fact, after receiving a call for help from the High Commissioner to Canada and Consulate General of India here in Toronto, Premier Ford arranged a donation of 3,000 ventilators to the Indian Red Cross to help India in its battle against COVID-19. Also, through the great work of the Canada-India Foundation, I've been learning more about the amazing benefits of Ayurveda and Indian systems of healing. This is something we can all benefit from during these difficult times, and of course, carry forward as experiences into our futures. I also want to thank all the many frontline healthcare workers, including the mental health and addictions workers, the volunteers and the administration staff that have been supporting the health and wellness of people, not only in Ontario, but across Canada and around the world. Our world is a better and safer place because of your vocation and dedication to the health and welfare of our societies. And our government applauds your ongoing commitment to protecting our communities and for always being there for your clients and patients during these most unprecedented times. Our government knows of the many long days and sleepless nights many healthcare workers have experienced over the past year to help protect our most vulnerable. You are all true heroes. And in a year unlike any other, people of all ages have been forced to adapt to the challenges brought on by the COVID-19 pandemic. As COVID-19 has spread through our communities across the country and around the world, it truly has tested our collective resilience. And without a doubt, this global pandemic has had an impact on the lives of millions, including significant impacts on our mental health. With prolonged physical isolation, financial challenges, and uncertainty about the future, we know this has resulted in so many new and more complex challenges than we've ever seen before. For example, we know that our youth are experiencing increased anxiety, depression, and suicidal ideation, eating disorders, as well as more substance use. We see new research and data almost every day that indicates Ontarians' mental health has been negatively impacted by this terrible pandemic. In fact, it's not just in Ontario, it's in Canada, and it's around the world. And I know that all of us have been extremely concerned about these impacts, and I'm very glad that in Ontario, our government has acted quickly to respond to them. First, we invested an additional $194 million in emergency funding to immediately expand access to mental health and addiction services. We did this because we know that no one patient is the same. There are the small business owners struggling to get by in the face of a global pandemic, the long-haul truck drivers feeling isolated from friends and family, the student increasingly slipping in his or her studies, the stress and anxiety of not knowing how our loved ones are doing in India, in Italy, or wherever our families originated from in the world. Those that have not been able to grieve the loss of a loved one, a family member or a friend. Each of these individuals has unique needs, but by matching them with the appropriate supports, we know that we can make a real difference in their lives. And that's why I was so proud to see that our investments included supports for community-based mental health and addiction services, interprovincial primary care teams, mental health supports for healthcare workers, and expanded virtual mental health and addiction supports for all Ontarians of all ages. These virtual supports are now being accessed by over 71,000 Ontarians from all walks of life, with over 6,100 frontline healthcare workers accessing specialized supports we introduced through a partnership with hospitals and organizations across the mental health and addiction sector. Once we recover from this pandemic, and I assure all of you that we will get there, we can expect that the mental health and addictions impacts are likely to extend beyond a return to normal. I liken it to the tail of the pandemic, that it's much longer than we at this point understand, and will have impacts into our future economic recovery, into how we manage the healthcare system. So there's a great deal of work still to be done. And I'm committed to working with mental health leaders, providers, and people with lived experience to address the challenges that may lie ahead. And this includes working collaboratively with other countries, with people that have lived experience, so that we can learn from each other and ensure that we build a better system for future, unfortunately, future potential outbreaks. For such a long time, our society has stigmatized those that suffer with addictions or mental health challenges. And now with the COVID-19 pandemic, I'm very encouraged to see a growing awareness and improved support for people experiencing and living with mental health and addictions challenges. And I commend the work of the organization today for continuing with dialogue relating to health, and of course for introducing me and helping me understand the incredible benefits of Ayurveda and some other therapies that are culturally appropriate and sensitive and needed for our growing and diverse populations. More and more, we're addressing the stigma attached to mental health issues, and it's forums like these that make it possible for us to speak, learn, and understand that there is nothing wrong to talk about mental health, because it is okay to not always be okay. And we're seeing people coming forward to talk about their own struggles or raise their voices in support of friends, families, neighbors who may be dealing with a mental illness. Thankfully, we have come a long way, but as I often say, we still have quite a way to go. And a key component of the future of mental health and addictions care is, importantly, about building a more inclusive space. It's about establishing a more patient-centered system of care that can better meet the diverse needs of diverse populations. This is an important priority for our government as we move forward with building a more comprehensive and connected mental health and addiction system that works for all Ontarians, and hopefully is a model for other jurisdictions as well. And this is also reflected in where we're making additional investments in mental health and addiction services. As part of the $194 million in pandemic-related funding for mental health and addiction services that we have invested, over $15.5 million was allocated towards a cross-sectoral approach to support vulnerable populations. And this included First Nations communities, Métis, Inuit, and urban Indigenous people, Black youth, children, and youth in care, LGBTQ youth, people with developmental disabilities, and victims of gender-based violence. Another example is our government's commitment to listen to and work closely with Indigenous communities and leaders to collaborate on mental health and addiction services that meet the needs of Indigenous people and are culturally appropriate. Indigenous peoples in Ontario and across Canada have faced long-standing barriers to accessing effective and culturally safe mental health and addictions care. So it's critical to make investments such as the more than $12.8 million in base funding we made last year to immediately expand and enhance culturally safe and appropriate mental health and addiction services for Indigenous peoples, families, and communities. I'm also especially proud of the most recent investment we made, which is an additional $175 million in funding for mental health and addictions care announced through this year's budget. This includes funding for 4 new mobile health clinics to help serve remote, rural, northern, and underserviced communities. This is an extremely innovative program that will ensure people are able to access the care that they need when and where they need it. Because whether you live in a large urban area or a sparsely populated rural area, you deserve access to the highest quality mental health and addictions care. This year's Ontario budget also highlights broader mental health and addiction supports, such as a crisis call diversion program to offer immediate support for individuals experiencing a mental health crisis, and on a campus and virtual mental health care supports for post-secondary students. These investments are part of a roadmap to wellness, our action-oriented plan to build a connected and comprehensive mental health and addiction system, which our government put forward just over a year ago. And we're also continuing to focus on integrating the mental health and addiction sector with justice services, investing in supportive housing, and targeting supports for vulnerable populations such as Indigenous communities. We're focused on building a connected care continuum for the people of the province of all ages, where community services, primary care, and acute care support work with each other, respect each other, in order to meet the needs of the patients and the clients. Another important priority under our roadmap is to address gaps in care by implementing innovative solutions such as Ontario's new structured psychotherapy program. This program provides access to evidence-based, publicly funded treatment offerings such as cognitive behavioral therapy using a step care model for people living with depression, anxiety, and anxiety-related conditions, the most common mental health issues to impact the people of the province. This program is the first of its kind in Canada and being implemented through an incredible partnership between several of our psychiatric hospitals here in the province. Work continues to expand the program beyond these 4 networks and to tailor supports and access points for those who often face barriers to mental health and addictions care, such as people of color and Indigenous populations. I'm sure many of you will agree that when I say that mental health and addictions is clearly one of the most pressing healthcare issues of our time, it is so. Half the population here in the province of Ontario will have or have experienced a mental health challenge by the age of 40. And we know that over 1 million Ontarians experience a mental health or addictions challenge each year, which has only increased during this pandemic. In Canada, over 500,000 days a week are lost as a result of a mental health or addiction issue. This is a serious concern. It is a serious problem. However, we are seeing important progress in how we reach and treat mental health and addictions, and we're delivering real and meaningful change. Again, I want to thank all of you for taking the time to listen. For me, mental health is extremely important. Mental health for me is health, and without one, we simply can't have the other. You know, whether you're an educator, a businessman, a professional, a family man, a child in school learning, being educated, if you don't have mental health, everything is lost. And so while I can honestly, and I said this many times now, there is no vaccine for mental illness. We have to work together. We need to collaborate and learn from each other. And we have to take those examples and incorporate them in innovative ways to ensure that we deliver the best services to our respective populations that we serve. I want to thank you again for giving me the opportunity to speak. God bless you all. Please stay safe. Our thoughts and prayers are with the people of India. Thank you very much for giving me this opportunity.
Thank you so very much, Minister, for your passion and commitment, and thank you for joining. We couldn't agree more. The issue, not only in Canada, but mental health is the biggest challenge, and we are very proud to mention here that we will be entering into a partnership with the UHN, that how we can integrate the traditional way of the medicine out of India, such as Ayurveda and yoga, and also the modern practices of the modern medicine to devise very unique ways of handling this post-COVID rehabilitation program. So we'll stay in tune and touch with you, and we're looking forward to your support. Thank you so very much for your time. Friends, today we are indeed fortunate to have the benefit of Mr. Rajesh Bhushan, Secretary, Ministry of Health and Family Welfare, Government of India, sending his remarks via recording. Mr. Bhushan, we are indeed privileged to have your remarks at a time. A million issues concerning the current situation in India must be vying on your attention. Friends, Mr. Bhushan belongs to the Indian Administrative Service, having held several important positions as civil servant before taking over his current post last year. May I draw your attention to his remarks?
I greet all the distinguished participants. I am honored to be participating in the third Canada-India Healthcare Summit. I also welcome you all to this very important event, which is focused on learnings from ongoing pandemic and the interventions which have helped us in fighting this invisible enemy using technical tools. In recent years, India and Canada have been working to enhance bilateral cooperation through several forums. And these forums, and I'm only giving you an illustrative list, include Science and Technology Committee, Environment Forum, Energy Forum, Steering Committee on Mining and Earth Sciences, Joint Working Group on ICTE, Joint Working Group on Education, Plant Protection, Health, Agriculture, so on and so forth. So it's a vast and expanding area of mutual cooperation between the two countries. As India grapples with the COVID-19 pandemic, we appreciate Government of Canada in reaching out to India with an offer of mutual cooperation. Today's uncertain times call for Canada and India to strengthen their ties more than ever and be part of a larger international cooperation mechanism and take concrete action to address the pandemic. This meeting also comes at a time when it has been more than a year since the global community has been fighting this war against COVID-19. It is also more than a year since COVID-19 was declared a public health emergency of international concern. Major countries are still experiencing the impact of the pandemic. These include those countries also where the numbers are declining, but the impact is not only short term and medium term, but it is also long term. The pandemic has shown that nobody is safe until all of us are safe. This also highlights the need for greater collaboration between countries on various aspects of health. Therefore, it is desirable that we must exchange our experiences, our learnings, our innovations, and also what has worked and what has not worked. Experiences during COVID-19 pandemic have provided a critical opportunity for countries to strengthen global preparedness and response against future global health emergencies. The focus today must be on various technological tools like telemedicine, digital platforms for pandemic management, digital platforms for vaccination management, use of artificial intelligence, and big data analytics. All these tools will help us in addressing and managing the pandemic in a more effective manner. We must admit that in such times of global crisis, both risk management and risk mitigation would require further strengthening of global partnerships. We also need to conquer the adversary with collaborations and by supplementing each other's capacity by pooling our resources. I take this opportunity to wish you well. I hope that the deliberations of this meeting will go a long way in addressing our common concerns and would prove mutually beneficial and productive. I thank you all.
Thank you so very much, Mr. Bhushan, for your insightful remarks. And friends, our next speaker, Mr. Deepak Baglas, a professional career of over 3 decades include the stints with the World Bank, Citibank, large private equity firms having responsibilities across Europe, Africa, and Asia. He's currently the Managing Director and CEO of Invest India, the National Investment Promotion and Facilitation Agency promoted by the Government of India. Invest India is also execution agency for the Startups India and the Prime Minister's Science and Technology Initiative. There is none better to inform us on India's current trajectory regarding investment, both domestic and international. And it is with great pleasure we welcome Mr. Bagla to the platform. Mr. Bagla, over to you, sir.
Thank you, Satish. Thank you really for getting us all together. And I have to thank you and Dr. Lakshmanan both for the excellent agenda you've set up. I was going through what is going to be happening for the 2 days, and I think it is really worth and a very, very critical set of topics which you picked up. It's also a pleasure for us when we see Excellency Mr. Ajay Basaria with us. He's really leading our entire efforts. And thank you again, Mr. Basaria, for all the guidance which you take and give to our teams and to see strengthening this bond between our two countries. And Excellency Patel, you said it's the end of the stint. I think it's just the beginning of yet another, which is not going to be far away from what you've done here. And as I was telling you when we met the last time, I think in your autobiography, your most well-read chapter and all the successes which you brought to it will be the chapter of your stint in India. I think when you look back, it's going to be with tremendous satisfaction and the impact you've created to see this corridor become so robust and to see the strengthening of the relationships between our two people. Thank you very much indeed. And it has always been a pleasure and the way and your efforts to take this forward. Ambassador Tybolo, Minister Tybolo, thank you for being with us. And thank you for all your support. You know, we are all in different boats, but we are in the same storm. And the thing is, we are in a boat currently which is going through some turbulent times. And we really appreciate the support and the help which has come from you and your government and your people. We thank you indeed for that. Secretary Bhushan did mention about what is happening in India and how it is important on the collaboration side. And as I said, I think one of the biggest learnings of this storm is that we need to hold hands together and help each other. And that is what we are seeing happen a lot. And then Ambassador Basaria mentioned that we've had over 40 countries and nations across the globe which have reached out and helped us in this time. Thank you very much to each and every one on that one. I got a letter from Satish which said that I should focus my comments on the opportunities in the healthcare sector. Well, let me start by saying that anything which I say today as an opportunity will be an understatement. I think what this little virus has done, it has just completely disrupted the world to a point where I see where the healthcare industry specifically is concerned. We are at its most critical inflection point, at least in our lifetimes. And when I look at the opportunity in India with about 1.5 billion hearts, minds, and people and lives by 2025, the largest on the planet. And if I look at an extended number by 2040 of about 1.75 billion people, 90% of them in the middle class, the opportunity is unparalleled and it is unprecedented. And when I say the opportunity, especially on the healthcare, is unprecedented, it is in every aspect of it, be it creating infrastructure like hospitals, be it telemedicine, be it on the innovation side, which is what I think is going to be one of the biggest pillars as we go forward. And I'm seeing a lot of that happen, especially between India and Canada. And we're seeing a number of those forums and teams being set up to come up with those very interesting solutions. I think in every aspect, especially of the sector which we are talking of today, is going to be the biggest ever unparalleled opportunity. Just a little on the impact of this unprecedented storm which has just hit us. during the past few weeks and months. You know, we were slated to be growing at over 11%, the fastest growth rate, which was predicted for us for this year. And for the next year, again, over 9%, again, the highest in the world. I think as per the revised estimates, we are looking at about still a growth of 9.5% going forward on our GDP. Despite the storm, the resilience shows India's ability to be able to maintain its growth and a position of being one of the fastest growing large economies on the planet. Our Prime Minister had set us a target of $10 trillion by 2030. We are at about $3 trillion of a GDP today. I see plus minus 12 months to 24 months on that one, but we are still steering towards that target. And that is where we see a lot of partnerships with us as we move across this $7 trillion opportunity during the course of the next decade. Let me move a little aside from the opportunity side, because I think that is very well established. And especially in the free world of democracies, which you and I both understand well, I don't think anywhere else will that opportunity be available, at least for the next 10 to 20 years. Let me just comment a little on two other aspects of what is happening. And one of the primary focuses of this government has been to help each one of you access that opportunity in the easiest manner. And what has happened on that is just some of the government initiatives, even though we were in the midst of this COVID, you see the government's focus on getting these things done, especially on the ease of doing business. Just a few weeks ago, we've done a soft launch of a single portal, which is a single window, so as to speak, where any of you who's looking at investing in India can come on there and you can fill out one single application form, which will get you approvals right across. It's not that you have to go to multiple departments to be able to do that. I must say that the Invest India team in any case will be hand-holding you right through that entire effort. But now it is one single portal with one application, combined application form, which will help you in this entire process. It's been a soft launch. I would urge each one of you, whosoever is looking at it, to please come on to our website, which is investindia.gov.in. You'll be able to access it. Please use it and also be getting in touch with the team. I must add to that is that number of my state governments already have these single windows, where within a deemed period of time, be it 30 days or 45 days or 60 days, depending on whichever they are, all your approvals will be given. These are big strides on trying to make it easy for you to access this huge opportunity. And the ability is not the ease of access, but also the speed of access at which you can do it, so your capital is employed and starts becoming productive in the shortest possible time to enhance your earnings. The more interesting thing here is that a number of plug-and-play models and parks have been created, and a large number of them are devoted to medical devices, pharmaceuticals, medical healthcare. That's the biggest sector. In fact, one of my largest sector in India, both by revenue and employment, is the healthcare sector. And High Commissioner Basaria mentioned that it's going to be about $370 billion by next year, by 2022. I dare say that these numbers are just based on past projections of the past 5 years. And as I said, all what we are going through is an inflection point where you'll see a hockey stick vertical coming out, especially where this sector is concerned. So each one of us on this meeting today, you are sitting in the heart of the biggest opportunity. So these parks, which I take you back to these industrial parks, which have been created especially for healthcare, pharmaceuticals, medical devices, are very effective plug-and-play models. And it's also very important because we are seeing a large number of mid-segment supply chains moving to India. As you know, one of the things which this virus has done is onshoring of supply chains closer to where the market is. And that's where I am personally seeing in my team a large number of global supply chains moving in that direction, closer to India. And this is where these plug-and-play models in our industrial parks are becoming extremely effective for these medium and small enterprises to come and start doing their businesses. But one of the other very interesting things which has happened, and which was a focus of this Prime Minister when he came into power, was the digitization of India. You know, today I have over 700 million people on the net. I'm the largest on the net today. The thing is, every second, 3 new people are joining the net in India, and 2 of them are from a village in India. And why is that important? Because please remember, over 11% of the world's population lives in my villages. So how is that impacting the investment climate? For the first time in human economic history, a brand new company could get 100 million new customers in 180 days. And that was the impact, all because of this digitization. I told you of this unprecedented storm and turbulence our boat is going through. Think if we did not have this digitization. I have over 640,000 villages. How would have I ever reached out to them to be able to fight this virus together? It is because of that huge digitization drive that you see a resilience in India and India's ability to take on these challenges. And this is the same infrastructure of digitization which will help each one of you reach out to each and every individual and citizen of India across its length and breadth of its geography. That is where making the access to this big opportunity much easier for you. The second point on my comments is the other focus of the government today is how do we make it one of the most profitable businesses for you when you come and access this opportunity. And one of the most interesting things which has happened in the past 160 days is a new incentive scheme which is linked to the level of production which you bring in, which has now taken the level of profitability and competitiveness to make it one of the most competitive globally. Now, this incentive scheme itself was created with very large and intensive and extensive participation of global and local stakeholders. We had stakeholders across the industry for medical devices, for pharmaceuticals, for APIs, for drugs, for biopharma, all coming together and see what were their suggestions on providing these incentives, on structuring these incentives to enable creating new global leaders and champions out of India. So the other interesting element of India is that the scale which you can create and get from the local market helps you in achieving that competitiveness. But in addition to that, what gets added is the incentive packages which the government has announced, which further enhances the profitability for each one of you looking at those incentives. I would urge you to have a look at what these incentive schemes are. Please reach out to us. They are also on my website, but each one of my dedicated team, and I must say here, and High Commissioner Mr. Basaria is leading that for us. We have a dedicated team in Invest India, dedicated to each and every one looking at investing in India, especially from Canada. It's a specially dedicated team. It has specialists to help you across finding through the entire investment cycle to show you the opportunity, to help you find the location, to get you government clearances, and to handhold you right through your entire business in India. This is your friend in India, in addition to every other element which is being taken by the government to make that happen. The third element, and which is where I'm seeing a very strong element of interaction between our two countries. Minister Tybolo mentioned about it. High Commissioner Nadir mentioned about it. High Commissioner Basaria mentioned about it. It's about innovation and startup. You know, the new inflection point is going to be driven by innovation. And it is this inflection point which is going to disrupt the entire current structure of the industry and coming up with new, very interesting models. In fact, I have over 4,000 startups in India itself, which are currently working only in healthcare and biotechnology. And this is where this partnership has gone into multiple levels and multiple layers. We've had universities from Canada doing partnerships with us. We have incubators from Canada. We have startups from Canada. We have local governments from Canada. We have the entire national government structure. And then we have the corporates and private enterprises. And they are coming and partnering together to create these innovations, not just for the people of India and the people of Canada, but the entire world. And let me remind you there that one of the most interesting and robust activity which is happening in India is in my innovation and startup side. As a startup program in India, we just started it in 2016 when the Prime Minister launched it. We're just about 5 years old. And I mentioned it in one of my last webinars when we were talking to our friends from Canada. In a short period of 6 years, 5 years, India is number 3 in the number of unicorns in the world. In fact, last year we added a unicorn every month, and this year I've virtually added a unicorn, already over 10 unicorns this year already. Number 2 in the world in number of startups, and number 1 in the world with new startups adding every day. This innovation, this startup is going to be the partnership between Canada and India, which is now going to lead this sector. Be it AI related, be it telemedicine, be it in every other aspect of it. This opportunity is going to be driven by this innovation. And I would urge each one of you to be a part of this journey. And I do want to end saying finally, investment is about opportunity. Investment is about profitability and competitiveness. But most importantly, investment is about trust. And I think the people-to-people trust between our two countries is something which is best acknowledged by everyone. There is a comfort, there is an understanding. And this is where is the biggest opportunity, where we want to further strengthen this partnership as we walk from a $3 trillion to a $10 trillion in the next 10 years and open $7 trillion to the balance sheets of each one of you and to your bottom lines. So thank you again for being with us. Satish, thank you for getting us all together. It is very important. I'm going to be joining right for today and tomorrow to hear all the interesting views and thoughts which are going to be shared and the opportunities. And where we are concerned, we are committed to this relationship. We have a special team and we want to work with you to see how we all move back into smoother waters. Thank you again, Satish, for getting us together. And I take it back to you.
Thank you so very much, Mr. Bagla, for your very, very uplifting remarks, and your leadership helped support in getting the investment flow from all over the world to India. I just want to assure you that Canada India Foundation, we're going to be working very closely with you that how we can deepen investment ties between Canada and India, and we'll be working very, very closely with you. Thank you so very much for your time today. Friends, it was a brilliant and inspiring session. Hope you all enjoyed. Our distinguished speaker not only enlightened us on many topics related to COVID-19 and the measure our governments and agencies are taking to combat COVID-19, but also gave us a glimpse into the better future for the world. Thank you all for joining.